He was just a teenager, backpack slung over his shoulder, sneakers scraping the pavement. Nothing unusual. But to the wrong eyes, he wasn't a kid at all. He was a threat. Within moments, flashing lights and harsh voices cornered him, turning an ordinary walk home into a nightmare. What those officers didn't know was that this boy's father carried a truth powerful enough to shatter their lies. But would it come in time? Or would the system swallow him first? It was supposed to be just another day. 16-year-old Marcus had finished basketball practice, his jersey still damp with sweat as he headed home through the familiar streets of his neighborhood. He was the kind of kid everyone described as quiet but full of potential. A solid student, a devoted son, someone who dreamed of being the first in his family to play college ball. His headphones rested around his neck, his favorite playlist buzzing faintly, drowning out the world as he thought about homework and dinner waiting at home. But as the sun dipped lower and the streets grew quieter, a different set of eyes locked onto him. A patrol car slowed, its presence heavy, watching his every step. Marcus didn't notice at first. Why would he? This was his routine, his safe route. Yet in that moment, the ordinary began to shift. A sense of unease lingered in the air, an unseen storm building, ready to crash down on him before he even understood why. Marcus first noticed the car when its headlights crept along the curb, following him at a pace too slow to be casual. His steps quickened, sneakers slapping against the pavement, but the patrol car matched his rhythm, its engine growling low, almost taunting. He told himself it was nothing, just coincidence. But deep inside, a familiar unease twisted in his gut, the kind he had learned to ignore too many times before. Then the sound came, a sharp chirp of the siren, the kind that doesn't demand attention, it commands it. Marcus froze, backpack heavy on his shoulders, palms slick with sweat. Two officers stepped out, their boots crunching against the asphalt. Their eyes didn't see a teenager, they saw a suspect. Empty your pockets. Hands where we can see them. The orders came fast, sharp, and without reason. He hadn't done anything. He knew it. They knew it. But explanations meant nothing here. Marcus lifted his trembling hands, his heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the night itself. One officer circled him, glaring as though searching for an invisible crime. The other gripped his holster, fingers twitching too close to the trigger. Marcus wanted to scream, to demand why, but the weight of history silenced him. He'd seen the headlines. He knew how quickly these moments could spiral into tragedy. As neighbors peeked from their porches, whispers filled the street. What's happening? Did he do something? The shame stung almost as much as the fear. To them, it didn't matter if he was innocent. The scene unfolding told its own twisted story. The officers yanked his backpack, spilling his textbooks and basketball shoes across the sidewalk. They sneered, calling it a routine check, but Marcus felt the humiliation burn in his chest. He wasn't a person in their eyes, just another target, another black boy to put in his place. And then, worse. The officer shoved him against the patrol car, the cold metal biting into his cheek. His wrists were twisted, metal cuffs clicking too tight. His heart pounded with one terrifying thought. This could be the end. But just as despair threatened to swallow him, a shadow moved at the edge of the crowd. A tall figure stepped forward, calm, deliberate, eyes locked on the officers. Marcus barely caught a glimpse through the blur of panic, but something about that presence felt different. Solid. Unshakable. The officers hadn't realized yet. They thought they had complete control, but they didn't know who was watching and what he carried in his hand. Marcus could feel the metal of the cuffs digging into his skin, every click echoing like a countdown. The officer's grip tightened, shoving him harder against the patrol car, his cheek scraping against the cold steel. The second officer's hand hovered near his holster, fingers twitching. Too close, too ready. Marcus's chest heaved, each breath shallow, his mind screaming the truth no one wanted to hear. I could die right here. The crowd had grown larger now, phones raised, voices trembling between fear and outrage. Yet even with eyes watching, the officers acted with the same unchecked authority, as if Marcus's life meant nothing. Every second dragged like an eternity. The tension coiled tighter and tighter, threatening to snap. And then, the voice. Deep, steady, unshakable. That's enough. The crowd parted as a man stepped forward, suit pressed, badge gleaming in his hand. Marcus's vision blurred with shock, but his heart leapt. His father, an FBI agent, a man who had fought his entire life for justice, now staring down the officers with a calmness that carried more weight than a shout ever could. The officers froze, their confidence faltering. Authority met authority. Power challenged power. But instead of backing down, one officer sneered, pressing harder against Marcus's back as if to prove a point. The crowd gasped, tension at its breaking point. Marcus's father stepped closer, voice firm, unwavering. "Release him! Now!" The silence that followed felt heavier than the cuffs themselves. One wrong move, one flash of arrogance, and this scene could explode into tragedy. Marcus's pulse hammered in his ears as he waited for the decision that could change everything. And then, the cuffs finally clicked open, falling heavy against the pavement. Marcus staggered back, wrists sore, face burning with humiliation. The officers muttered excuses, trying to mask their retreat as procedure, but their arrogance had cracked. Under the weight of the FBI badge, under the eyes of a crowd now emboldened by truth, their power slipped away. Marcus's father placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder, shielding him in a way only a parent could. But the damage was already done. The sting of cold steel on his skin, the memory of being treated like a criminal for simply existing, those scars would outlast the moment. He had survived, yes, but survival was never the same as freedom. In the days that followed, neighbors spoke in hushed tones about what they had witnessed. Some shook their heads in shame, others in fear. Yet Marcus couldn't shake one thought. If his father hadn't been there, if the badge hadn't gleamed in that officer's face, would he still be standing? That's the reality too many live with. Not every black child has someone with a badge to step in. Too often, their stories end not with release, but with silence, with hashtags, with names etched into a growing list of lives cut short. Marcus's story is not an isolated incident. It is a mirror, a reminder of a system that still sees skin before it sees humanity. A reminder that justice cannot depend on who happens to be watching. So the question remains, how many more Marcuses will it take before the world finally changes?